Go. That's a good way to start this morning. Oh, check that out. That is on Rapala's new Jollar topwater. We're up in Minnesota fishing a lake this morning, never been on. I'm with my good buddy Andrew Taylor from Lure Parts Online. I'm going to need a pliers for this. What a way to start. And man, those red line hooks are just brutal. What a beautiful fish that is right there. I love coming to new water. It's always a great experience. Today, as I said, I'm with my buddy Andrew Taylor. We've got room in the boat. We're glad you're here. Today, we're catching fish. That was awesome. Oh my goodness. They got off the top water pretty quick. And come here, you. So just working the outside of the edge with a jig. And I'm going to show you guys something here. That, what a pretty fish that is. And barely came off there. When you're up here, Minnesota, the farther north we go, there's always one color that, and you've heard us talk about green pumpkin before, but I am telling you, the farther north you go in northern Wisconsin, Minnesota, these lakes like this, green pumpkin or an offshoot of that. Let me get this trailer that came off down here. Actually, just here it is right here. And so in the summertime, what I do, since the fish's metabolism has picked up a little bit, I'm using our twin tail craw. I cut it down just a little bit. And this is just a color called Magic Craw. And we'll go over the whole setup. If this is what continues to happen today, is going to be in a jig. But that twin tail, and we're fishing the edge of grass. That's where I first got the hit on the top water. But these fish, that one came up on it. After that, they really slowed down. You could tell there's just not a lot of activity. There was a big rainstorm last night. So two great ways to go about this, and there's numerous ways to do it, but one of my favorite in the summertime is at least a half-ounce jig, because it falls faster. You've got the action of that twin tail, and you cause them to commit. Especially after a front, there's three places that you almost always want to hit: rocks, docks, and stumps. Farther north we go, edges of weed lines can be really, really good. Now later in the day as the sun gets up, the fish may tuck back in the weeds, but right now they're on the outside edges of those weeds. And what I'm doing is just pitching a jig to it. We'll probably try a jig, probably try a wacky worm, anything that keeps our focus on those fish on the edge of the weed lines. That's the third fish that has hit that jig on white. That's just the best one. But remember that after a front, you're going to stick with those edges on weeds or rocks, stumps, or docks. We got more to catch. Nice fish, dude.
Keeping him from jumping.
I don't think he's going anywhere with the way he ate that jig.
And I've got that Ozark jig hook on it.
Yeah.
So
show him that cool point on that jig.
Look at this.
I know.
It's not going anywhere. And well, I'll show him if I can get it.
Yeah, here, I'll give you the pliers. You'll need that. So there's basically, and Lure Parts has a whole bunch of jigs you can choose from, but there's two that Andrew and I throw on a consistent basis. One is a flip and skip jig that we both worked on, designed together, and the other one is actually one of my favorite jigs for fishing really, really deep grass, and this is that Ozark jig. And if you notice the point, it looks kind of strange, but he'll attest to it, so will I. When you stick a fish with that, it locks it in there, doesn't it?
Yes, and then the jig can't bounce around and loosen up, so it sews them up.
Yeah, and it just both those jigs, we'll show you a discount code later. We'll show you all that for Lure Parts, but between that flip and skip jig and that Ozark jig, two absolutely killer grass jigs that gives you good consistent hookups. Oh, I love it when you get a jig bite in the weeds. Man, I love it. Come here. Oh, goodness gracious. What a pretty fish that is. Man, did he hammer it. Come here. Get in here. Yeah. What a beautiful bass. Anywhere. What a beautiful bass that is. That there's nothing I would rather do. Let me put that fish back. There's nothing I would rather do than fish a jig. It's just, if I had one bait to choose all the time for largemouth bass fishing, without question, it would be a jig. You can hop it, you can swim it, you can drag it. And when you're fishing weed lines like this, right here, in the summertime, you've got 75-degree water temperature. They are on a summer pattern. They are going to be on these weeds. This is the most predictable time of year right now because things stay more constant. And when you can go along these edges right here, a jig is absolutely one of your best choices. In a lot of cases, it's going to be your best choice for a big fish. We're going to go over everything, and I know a lot of you know how to fish a jig. There may be some of you watching that don't. Please continue to watch this because I'm going to go over everything that I can to help you, to do my best to help you be a more proficient jig fisherman. Because without question, not only is it a big fish bite, there are plenty of times out in the water when you're going to need that bait to catch you more fish. Oh, he's got it. Another one. Come here. Yeah, buddy. Oh my goodness, is this fun? Fun, fun, fun. Look how they're eating this thing. Look how they're eating this thing. Look how they're eating this thing. See, and this is when I was just telling you about summertime bass. This is another way that you can tell that is predictable. These fish are well done spawning, okay? They're well past that, and now they're feeding up. So on natural lakes like this, they're gonna have more of a tendency to get on these grass lines at this. Any of you can do this. Northern Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, you can do it. Keep fishing that jig. We're gonna show you how in just a little bit, and you'll catch more. All right, you get him. Bring him around the other side.
He blows.
There you go. Oh yeah, there you go. Bring him on that side, and I'll get him. Ooh. Nice job, buddy. Oh yeah, beautiful fish. Beautiful fish. Real nice. Come here. Gotcha. Nice. There you go. Nicely done. Weeds and everything. So what I'm doing is I've actually found the edge of the weed line that I'm going to be fishing on 360 right here. So I know the weed line is right out in front of me. So I want to stay just on the edge of that weed line. I know it's 8 to 9 foot deep. Okay. So I make the cast out, and as the bait is sinking, I am going to strip line off 3 or 4 times and watch the bow in my line. And there it goes. The bait is on the bottom. Line goes limp. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold that rod position between 1 and 2 o'clock. Okay. What I'm doing here, most of your jig bites are always going to come on the fall. So to put the odds more in my favor, I'm going to make repeated falls. How do I do that? I'm going to pop the rod up, let it fall, and I'm going to watch that line. You're watching with, you're feeling and you're watching, because sometimes the line will just stop on the water. Reel down. It's probably going to be a fish. Sometimes you'll feel a big thump. Reel down, set the hook as hard as you can. So I'll make the cast out one more time. And remember, this is how I fish a grass edge. This is different than if I'm fishing shallow timber, okay, or shallow laydowns. So I'm letting my bait fall. I'm watching the bow in my line. As soon as that goes slack, there it goes right there. The bait is on the bottom. Now I'm going to engage the reel. If I would make the cast out there and just engage the reel, the bait would not drop straight down. It would swing back toward me. I blew the whole cast. On the first initial drop, you want to make sure that it drops back toward the weed line. That will give you the most distance where you can make the most falls with that jig. So now I'm going to hop it, let it fall again, and I'm watching that slack. Hop it, let it fall, watching that slack. If I feel a bite, I'm going to reel down and set as hard as I can. What I'm going to do when I set the hook is what's called a slack line hook set. Okay? So, make the cast out there. My bait hits the bottom. Let's just say it's on the bottom now. That fish hits it on the way down. I'm gonna reel till I feel the fish and snap my wrist and forearm. That is gonna drive that hook. I don't want to pull. I want to snap it. As soon as I do that, then I'm gonna keep in contact with the fish, keep that rod tip up, because the more that fish struggles, the more that hook point goes into that fish and the more positive a hook set you have. What a great day we're having. Of course, I'm gonna tell you about the equipment that we're using now. Andrew's using, he's more comfortable with the spinning rod. I'm gonna show you my setup for fishing a jig, and this is all the time. The rod that I built for this, I love those MHX blanks from Mudhole, and this is an MB843. It's basically a 7-foot medium heavy 10 to 17 pound test. I've got 17 pound Suffix fluorocarbon on here. I always like fluorocarbon for jig fishing because it's more sensitive. It's got a little bit less stretch, so you really feel those bites. And in this grass, it worked out perfectly. Now the reel, all my jig reels, whether I'm fishing a jig deep, whether I'm fishing a swim jig, regular jig, it is the Cast King Speed Demon Elite, has an 8:6 to 1 gear ratio, has 10+1 ball bearings. Absolutely, without question, the best jig reel that I've ever fished. It's quick, it's responsive, it's rock solid, and I think I actually have 4 of these reels because I vary from shallow to deep on my jig fish and even have it on my plastic reel. Just a great reel. Fantastic setup right here. And to Top it all off, the jig I'm throwing today is my absolute favorite. We talked about two of them. We talked about the Ozark jig and the one that I helped Lure Parts design. This is the flip and skip. I also really like fishing this in grass. This jig comes in 3/8 to 1/2 ounce. Now when I'm fishing deeper, I will go to that 3/4 ounce Ozark jig. You saw the hookups that Andrew had in that jig. That Ozark jig, especially when you're fishing really deep, phenomenal hookups. But anytime you're fishing around shallow cover, grass like this, and most of the grass we were fishing today was in that 8 to 9 foot range where most of those fish were holding on that edge. A 1/2 ounce was a quick enough fall to get a great reaction bite from them. On the back of it, I have that turbo tail of ours. This is a Magic Craw, is a skirt color. This is Blue Cross Swirl in the turbo tail, and all these you can get at Lure Parts online. I built this jig myself. I used a green pumpkin head on here. You can use green pumpkin or black, it doesn't matter. The cool thing is, for me, that we learned years ago, and a lot of you I'm sure know it too, but the farther north that you go, green pumpkin really comes into play. It is one of those colors that work all across the country. We've told you before, black and blue and green pumpkin. This is a really great combination. Got a little bit of blue, a lot of green pumpkin, the same with the trailer. You know what? Fishing a lot of times just comes right down to putting the odds in your favor. It's a game. And the more you learn to play the game, the more successful you're going to become. Real simple, jig fishing, twin tail in the summertime, more action because the fish's metabolism is higher. That's what worked for us today. I guarantee you it will work for you.